Pugnacious, controversial, spiky, but ultimately for a person who wears causes passionately apologetic.
So I've tell you once and I'm not going to tell you again. This is the official line. If I see any of you out there, I'm going to take a run and put my toe up the crack of your arse.
Janey Godley has found straddling comedy and politics a way of enlarging her fan base, but she has also found that if you are an agitator in the hothouse of argument, the heat can become too much. Last September, historic tweets emerged. They were specifically racist and generally offensive, and they appalled, pointing to hypocrisy and begging questions. Is she naive or hubristic? How did she think she could get away with such bile? Gigs were cancelled along with her fronting the Scottish Government's COVID information campaign.
And give yourself a wee prod twice a week.
Her in-demand status waned. She admitted she contemplated ending her life as the full horror of her utterances tortured her. She sought forgiveness in a public way.
I have used phrases, words, comments with horrifically despicable undertones. And you can't just pass that off as comedy. And I accept any criticism that comes my way.
Her fight for her reputation gave way to a fight for her life. In November, she revealed she was fighting cancer. Her emotional vortex just got more complicated amid chemo and a mental health challenge as she battled stage 3B ovarian cancer.
On to the next step in my journey, and what is that journey? I don't know if I'm going to be one of these people who battle bravely and who fight every step. I don't know.
In earlier life, she was a victim of sexual abuse. She has fought adversity, established a career, saw it blown off course by her hand and mouth, and is now back fighting again. She's just the person to discuss being up, down, and battered by wounds self-inflicted and beyond her control. What has she learned, and has it changed her? Janey, you've been in the wars recently, so the first thing I want to ask you is, how are you?
Well, it differs from week to week. I'm going through chemo just now, so the symptoms are many and varied. At the beginning of chemo, it really affected my mental health, which I wasn't prepared for. I was prepared for sickness and other things, but I wasn't prepared for the shock of how it affected me mentally. And that was quite difficult. And how it affects my entire family, you know, but I'm feeling physically okay. I'm still in shock and trauma that I have cancer. I still have to say to myself, I'm in the kitchen and I see my reflection in the microwave, I go, that's right, I've still got cancer. But I might not have cancer because I got all my giblets taken away. I had ovarian cancer and I got a full hysterectomy, a radical hysterectomy, and they took away the tumour, and I'm now getting chemotherapy, so hopefully everything has gone and I don't have cancer anymore, hopefully.
What strikes me as we're having this conversation, you're super articulate in describing this, but you're also super rational about it. Whereas, again, to use the cliche, the kind of fight in your life that pulls you in an emotional direction, and the emotions are irrational. They cut through the ability to think straight. How do you manage to continue to think straight and live with the illness?
Because I think you get to a point where you have to just lean into it. I've got cancer, Bernard, and I might die. And I have to, you know, the amazing thing is, I never got cancer until I was 60. There's people, women get this disease. Ovarian cancer is a very sneaky cancer, and they get this illness very young. I got to 60 before this hit me, so I'm really grateful for that. But emotionally, there's days when I think this is all going to go away and then I'm going to be fine. And then there's some days when I'm like, what if this doesn't go away and this is how I die? And there isn't anything you can do to change that other than that is what it is.
This all came shortly after a sort of furore last year.
Furore is a good word.
After historical social media posts which were unearthed. When this all broke last year, what was your immediate thoughts?
Shame, and then realising that 11 years ago, I wrote things that I thought was me just commenting on a TV show. Wasn't it? It was hurtful. There were hurtful, shameful words that hurt people of colour.
But when people were able to unearth these and say, here they are, here's what they say, here is the evidence, Janey Godley is a racist.
No, I'm not a racist. I've never believed that people of colour or anybody deserves any less than anything we have. I have supported Black Lives Matter. I've marched against fascists.
Do you remember writing this stuff?
I was commenting on the X Factor. You know what? There's words there that I wouldn't even use, comedy that I wouldn't even use today that I used then.
Why do you think you did it?
I think because I thought people know that I'm not a racist, so I can, see, that's a good point. It's quite an insidious thing, is that you get to a point of privilege where you think you can say anything and people will take it at face value because we know you're not a racist. You've marched for immigrants. You've supported refugees.
Did they know that at the time?
No, it was wrong. It was me. And that's why I apologised. I apologised immediately and profusely. And I'll always apologise for it. And I think that even back then, 11 years ago, when it was unearthed, when they were done 11 years ago, even besides that, there is words and phrases and comedy that I did that I wouldn't do now.
Does that tell you perhaps, just to pursue that point, does it tell you perhaps that, because people who are comedians are sometimes very quick, being quick is, I suppose, part of the repertoire. The problem is if you're instinctive and you're quick, you're not necessarily always thinking.
No, I'm not processing what I'm doing, and you're right, but it's still wrong. But freedom of speech comes with consequences. And besides those consequences, we also have to have a space. If we've got freedom of speech, and you have to have consequence for that freedom of speech, which I agree to, there also has to be a space, a third pillar for, we have to accept people can change and grow. If we don't, if we say, we do not accept, 11 years ago you said that and we do not accept you can change and grow, then there is no reason why people should change or people should grow. I am a very divisive character. People love what I do, people hate what I do. Both are correct.
When all of this was breaking, what was your lowest point?
I had a very bad night where see, the thing is I've spent my whole life being ashamed and fighting. I've fought all my life, fought off a child abuser at 5, and then I went into pubs and I became a fighter in pubs. And then I went on stage and I was confronted by, I was confrontational on stage, and everybody applauded Janey the fighter. Janey's a wee battler. It was seen as a good thing for me to be like that. And then when I was faced with the shame was just overwhelming, and I contemplated ending my life, and the Samaritans saved my life. And I realised that I can't, it wasn't.
Was part of that shame because you make the point that you've been a fighter. You make the point, and it's, I think, important when people look at the totality of an individual's character, they understand the hurt that you endured earlier in your life, and as part of the shame, knowing that that hurt which you have felt, that through your words and actions you had hurt other people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The very fact I had hurt people, I'd really hurt people. I'd made people feel othered. And I had made people so upset, and I'd said things that were really offensive and hurtful. And this, you know, I'm not the victim here. The victim is the people that I hurt, you know, and it's for them to consider my apology, not for me, you know. And I won't ever, I think to the day I die, I won't ever stop being ashamed of what I said.
The backlash was pretty ferocious, but let me ask you a point. If you hadn't sort of taken one or two political stances, do you think it would have been as ferocious, or you might have been able to see it out?
No, I think I would always have to say what I want politically. I mean, the leader of Ukraine is a comedian originally, and you know, they're allowed to have political thoughts. My mistake, and I will always regret it, was I took government money. And see, the minute you take government money, you are absolutely right to be under a different set of scrutiny. I should never have taken their money. I should never have taken government money. The minute you do that, people have got every right to go back into your history to see what they are paying for. It's astonishing. It's astonishing though that I'm held to a higher standard than any politician in this country. But they have got every right. If you're taking the public purse, they've got every right to drag up what you said in 1966 if they want. And I was loving making.
But do you think that's true? Do you think if a politician had said or tweeted,
you need to look at what Boris has written in The Spectator. You need to look at the phrases and words he's used. You know.
And he's criticised for it.
Yeah, yeah. He never lost his job.
Yeah.
So I'm held to a higher standard.
What's the key lesson you've learned from this?
Is don't argue back, block and move on. Just block them and move on. People get really upset that I've blocked them. People have got every right to tell me they hate me and they hope I die of cancer. I've got every right to block them and not look at it. But I defend their right to be able to say that. Let's
move on.
Okay.
And what does the future hold for Janey Godley?
Well, I've got my new book coming out.
I know, because you've given me a copy.
Nothing Left Unsaid, which bizarrely opens with a woman in the Royal Infirmary who's dying of cancer. And I never had cancer when I started writing the book. And it's my first fiction novel. And I'm super excited about it, Bernard.
What was the... did you always want to write? Did you always want to do this?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I always wanted to write. I used to write short stories at school. And I loved writing.
And are we going to see you back on stage?
Yes. I decided that I'm going to take the rest of this year off, which terrifies me, Bernard. I've never had time off. This not working thing is quite frightening. I'm going to write, I'm going to do some wee gigs, but the tour I'm going to put off to next year in the hope that the cancer's gone. Sorry, just the hope that the chemo has get rid of it. And if the chemo has get rid of it, then I'll be on tour next year. I'm going to get fit, I'm going to get walking again. I can do 4 mile now. And if the chemo hasn't get rid of it, then you are welcome to come to my funeral. I think there's going to be quiche.
Look, if spirit defeats cancer, it's already licked. Janey Godley, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks.